Hi, welcome to Textures, the history and art of black hair. I'm Dr. Joseph Underwood.
And I'm Dr. Tameka Ellington.
And we're so pleased to be able to walk you through our exhibition today. Dr. Tameka and I are going to go back and forth, introducing different sections, themes, and key exhibition display items that will help craft this history. I mean, Dr. Tameka, why do we even need to talk about the history of hair?
Well, the history of hair has been in existence since colonization. And so it's a history that is still very much so untold, and we felt that it was very important for us to be able to tell the story, at least a bit of the story, as much as we could with this show.
And how far back does the story go in our exhibition?
Wow, we were able to go all the way back to ancient Egyptian times. So black hair, braids, and the history of black hair starts way back in ancient Egypt civilization.
So we're going to guide you from ancient Egypt up through today. We have about 55 contemporary artists across 180 objects. It's one of the largest loan exhibitions in the Kent State University Museum history, and we're so pleased to share it with you today.
Absolutely. Welcome. For the exhibition, Textures, the History and Art of Black Hair, Dr. Joseph and I felt that it was very important for us to be able to tell the breadth and depth of the complexity of black hair story. And so we divided the show into 3 different sections: the community and memory section, the black hair politics section, as well as the black joy section. This particular section here is called community and memory. In this particular area of the show, you'll see a lot of historic pieces such as African combs. You'll see things such as elements that really represent black culture, such as beauty salon culture and barbershop culture. Those elements really help to tell the story of how the black hair community began. In regards to community, black hair is something that's always been done in pairs or in sets of 3s. In African cultures, there's always been a particular person in the tribe that was responsible for doing everyone's hair. And so doing hair is very much so a community effort. We wanted to be able to display that in the show and to be able to give you a little bit of history and at the same time.
As part of community and memory, one of the biggest sections is our combs and pins. These come from not only the African continent, but also the diaspora. For example, these incredible wooden combs from Suriname, which would be carved as marital gifts. So some are functional, used for combing the hair, and some are just symbolic. Or we might look at the ivory pins from the Mangbetu people, where the point of the pin is used to draw a hairstyle into the scalp, and then the different strands of hair are separated and braided. But then once you finish the hairstyle, the pin is inserted as a decorative element. So it really bridges that gap of functional and aesthetic. And this is why we have to attend to cultural specificity. We can't lump black cultures and peoples all together. So the different combs and pins, even though they are a very basic form, they will manifest very differently across different black cultures. When we look at wooden sculptures, figurative items from the African continent, we might see that bodies are abstracted, but also that the surfaces are really simple, very smooth, until you get to the hair. Then there can be hundreds of marks used to create the hairstyles, and that's why we've turned all the sculptures around so that you can really enjoy the richness of the details on the hairstyle.
In this particular part, you'll see imagery that really resonate with black hair beauty salon culture. This artist, Annie Lee, is a very well-known, popular black artist who does many different types of prints that represent black culture. Annie Lee's prints can be seen in beauty salons all across the US. Any person that comes in that's a black female that's experienced the black hair beauty salon culture will definitely resonate with a print from Annie Lee. Also, you'll see in this section, there's magazines. When you go to a beauty salon, oftentimes you'll see magazines on the shelf or either magazines on the table, and women will use those as they're waiting to get serviced in the salon. But the black hair care salon culture is very important to the community of black culture because many times women go there to gather. So not only to get their hair done, but to gather, to communicate and talk about what's happening in the neighborhood. Oftentimes, political aspects of the culture will be discussed in Black hair salon culture areas, but it's a very important part of the show. We wanted to give the total arrangement of what it is like for the community aspects of Black hair. So Black salon culture is definitely a major part of the Black hair care community.
So going back to include Egyptian artifacts allows us to refer to some of the oldest cultures on the African continent. These are different pieces that are small sculptures, a stele tablet, and then actual silver ornaments that you would put inside of a wig. Hair was really important to defining your status and who you were. You might be like the figure Khonsu, who has a side lock to indicate his youthfulness. And with Isis, the goddess, there are lots of different stories about hair that range from women coming together to braid her hair while she processes her life, to the mythology that she and her priestesses could braid their hair and control the weather by doing that. So this allows us to tell a very long story of Black and African hair going back thousands of years. One thing that was important for us to do was to also focus on individual narratives. It becomes really easy to flatten communities, to say every barbershop does this or every salon does this, when in reality, everyone is going to have an individual experience within a larger community. The artist Devin Shimoyama actually allows us to explore that concept very well because of his Crybaby series. So this is the piece Elijah, and it focuses on his experience growing up as a queer man. So whilst kind of the big narrative is that barbershops are a place where everyone comes or young men learn how to be men, he's saying not always and not for everyone. It was actually a weird space for him as a queer man. The idea that they would talk about women one way while they were in the room and then differently once they left. So he actually borrows a lot of elements from queer culture, dress, things like drag, with the materials he uses to create his collage. So we have feathers, artificial jewels, crystals, and you're really gonna see that come across when you look at the surface of the canvas. We put this individual narrative into dialogue with Joseph Eze's piece that shows the threading technique that was popular in West Africa. He's trying to preserve what he remembered his mother and grandmother doing, even though in contemporary times, the influx of artificial hair and wigs and weaves has really diminished that practice. And then on this side, you see the pieces by Althea Murphy Price, an incredible screen print and collage artist. She is thinking about her individual narratives as a little Black girl and how those little plastic barrettes are your cultural currency, how you divine yourself, the latest trend. But she's also reflected on her experience as an introvert and saying that she didn't always want to stand out. So there was a weird tension with that. So these pieces allow us to think about communities, but also how individuals that might run against the grain also are part of those communities.
Also within the community and memory aspects of the exhibition, it was important for us to show tools that were actually invented years ago to style Black hair. And particularly, these particular items were created in France. The French created the Marcel curler as well as the straightening comb that you see here. And when they created it in order to do the hairstyle that's like that Shirley Temple long curl hairstyle that was really popular back in the late 1800s. However, when it came over to the US and Black people began to use these products, instead of it being something that was going to enhance their hair, these tools became a way for Black people to alter the texture of their hair. So straightening combs became very popular in the early 1900s by way of people such as Madam C.J. Walker and Annie Turnbull Malone. These products were used in conjunction with hair pomades, and they were used to straighten the hair texture of Black people from the curly, kinky texture to a straighter hair texture. And the reason why that was important for Black people back in those days was because in order to be employable Black people had to straighten their hair. So before the invention of the straightening comb came to be, Black people actually started straightening their hair with iron that we would use to iron our clothes. So they would have the iron on the fire, and instead of putting the clothes on the ironing board or on a table, the woman would put her head on the table and then she would iron her hair while her hair is laying flat on the table. So Black people have been straightening their hair since slavery times in order to be considered more acceptable, more employable in society. Other types of tools that were used are kerosene heaters, and then eventually electric heaters that were used to heat up these elements. Black people even began using crimping tools that were also invented by the Marcel Company. And so there's so many different tools, and these are, like first generation Marcel curlers and straightening combs. And when you look at the products that Black people are using today, the straightening combs and the curling irons that they're using today, they're still very similar. So the technology that was invented back in the late 1800s hasn't really changed very much. And the way in which Black people are using those really hasn't changed very much except for in style variation. So this is one of the last sections that you'll see in the community and memory section of the exhibition. This particular piece, these two pieces here by artist Andrew Asebu, a Nigerian artist. He is a photographer that loves looking at still life objects regarding barber salon culture. And you can see in these two images that he actually took photos of the inside of a drawer or on the top of the table, still life images of tools that are used to cut hair, to style hair. And what's interesting about this is that the pieces are from a series called Pride. Pride in the way in which one looks, pride and beauty. And this particular piece right here connects with that because this artist, Derek Adams, is actually talking about the fact that Black beauty should be something that is something to be proud of, because in his particular piece, it's called There's More Than One Beauty Salon. Basically, it's trying to say that the society has taught us that there's only one form of beauty, where in reality, there's a multitude of different types of beauty. And Black beauty is one of those types of beauty that should be celebrated and should be looked at as something to be proud of.
So here at the center of the exhibition, we have the largest installation. It actually came over on a boat from South Africa. It's a piece by Mary Sabande. It's an installation called Sophie in Dialogue with Madam C.J. Walker. So here you see the figure that is wearing blue, which is the traditional color of a maid's uniform in South Africa. The artist's mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother all worked as domestic workers. And so she's transformed that blue gown into a massive installation that takes up the whole space. You go from someone who's invisible to hyper-visible. Mm-hmm. And so this Sophie character that Mary makes, it's actually her alter ego. And so in different installations, Sophie is riding a horse or opening her shirt to show the Superman S. But in this one, she's in dialogue with Madam C.J. Walker.
Also in this particular part of the exhibition, you'll see these two beautiful hanging pieces here on really lightweight silk by an artist by the name of Amber Ford. These two pieces resonate with me in particular because as a young girl, I remember, getting my hair braided. As in the Madam C.J. Walker piece, the artist Mary Sabande used something called Carolanne hair. Carolanne hair is braiding hair that's used to add into Black girls' hair to braid their hair. It helps the braid stay in longer and it helps to add some length to the hair. And so in Amber's piece called Feeders, you'll see imagery of braids that she had previously taken out of her own head and arranged on a table to make the beautiful shot. This other piece over here, it's called pronto, and pronto is another word for weave. The weave is actually a really important part of Black culture because, in fact, weaves were actually invented by a woman named Christine Jenkins. And Christine Jenkins was a businesswoman back in the 1950s. She patented the weaving technique. And these prontos are just a wonderful example of how Black hair community has evolved over time. All right, now we have reached the hair politics section of the exhibition. It was really important for us to be able to talk about some of the struggles that Black people have had to deal with in regards to their hair. It's a really major part of the hair story, and we wanted to try to give as much detail as possible. So you can see we start off this section of the exhibition with a piece by an artist named Sonia Clark. It's the Black Hair Flag. It's a piece that really speaks for itself. Sonia Clark is an amazing fiber artist, and she oftentimes tells the story of Black people, even using Black hair as a part of her materials that she works with in her pieces. The reason why we wanted to show all of these elements together is because they are really representative of antebellum slavery, chattel slavery, when Black people were enslaved. This particular piece is a corn grinder, and this came from part of the collection from a gentleman by the name of Dr. Willie Morrow. And he himself actually told us the story about how the corn grinder was so important to Black hair. So during the slavery times, Black people didn't have the necessary tools to take care of their hair. And so they would take any elements that they could find. So they would take the corn, grind up the corn, and then pull it through their hair to help cleanse their hair, remove bugs, remove dirt. They would use it to condition their hair as well. What's really interesting about this section is to have an international perspective on what's been happening for the slave culture. This particular piece by Yurin Gabon, artist from Jamaica, called Cottonhead. In traditional slavery times in the U.S. South, slaves picked cotton. Also in the Caribbean, slaves picked cotton as well as they planted things such as sugar cane. And it relates back to then Sonia Clark's piece. The hairstyles that she used in her pieces are called cornrows and Bantu knots, which are hairstyle techniques that are very, very traditional hairstyle techniques that you would find in African cultures. Even way back to pieces such as that you would see in ancient Egyptian times, you can find different types of cornrows and braids in those pieces as well. So when Dr. Joseph and I were going through the collection of one of our lenders, Dr. Willie Morrow, when we came across these pieces here, the Lucky Brown hair products and the jumbo end wraps from Sally's Beauty Supply, I thought it was very important for us to include these pieces in our hair politics section of the exhibition, because even though these items are very, very small, they tell a large, big story about Black hair history. And so the Lucky Brown Company is a company that was owned by whites. They came out right after Madam C.J. Walker began to have some recognition and some monetary gain from creating products that were made specifically for Black people. The Lucky Brown products were catered to Black people. They were hair straightening products as well as they were skin lightening products. And they named their company Lucky Brown because if you used their products, you would be a lucky brown person in order to straighten your hair and lighten your skin tone, which would also make you more employable in society. And so it's really interesting to see how Madam C.J. Walker and Lucky Brown were both companies that were creating these hair products to help increase the economic development for Black people. However, it's controversial that the Lucky Brown Company is a white company because throughout history there's been such an up and down with who actually owns the Black hair care industry. Is it going to be someone that's a company that's Black owned, or is it going to be non-Black owned? And so it's been something that's been going up and down ever since the beginning of time. These pieces here, the jumbo end wraps from Sally Beauty Supply, is also a piece that was really important to put in our Black hair politics section of the show, because end wraps are elements that are actually used with a hairstyle called the Jerry curl. The Jerry curl was actually invented by a Jewish gentleman by the name of Jerry Redding. He invented this hair straightening product that would be complemented by putting these rod curler rollers onto the hair. But before they did that, they would take the paper end wraps and wrap the hair with the ends, and then they would roll it. And the Jerry curl hairstyle was a very, very popular hairstyle, starting in the late 1970s up through the early 1990s. Jerry Redding made billions of dollars off of Black people. And the Jerry curl product was probably one of the most detrimental products ever created for Black hair care culture. Particularly, the reason why is because it was one of the most destructive pieces of different types of hairstyles that you could actually wear, because the chemicals were so strong oftentimes. And I remember myself, I also had a Jerry curl growing up. And I remember myself and friends around me all having issues with their hair when they were trying to transition out of wearing this Jerry curl hairstyle, losing their hair becoming brittle, split ends. And so this particular product, even though it was very popular and it made Jerry Redding a lot of money, it was also something that was very detrimental to Black hair care culture. Another aspect of the hair politics section of the exhibition is looking at not only hair politics on a societal grand macro level, but also looking at it as a microcosm within the Black hair culture. These three pieces here represent something that is called good hair. Good hair is a concept within the Black community that actually stemmed from racism and discrimination that was caused from slavery times. During those times, people were taught that there's certain types of hair textures that are better than others, when in all actuality, we know that that's not true. However, it's something that Black people still deal with. Black people are still under the brainwashing of thinking that there's certain types of hair textures that are better than other types of hair textures. And so the concept good hair actually refers to any Black hair texture that is straighter. The closest that you can get to white people's hair is the better, quote unquote, good hair types of hair textures. And so these particular artists, these three artists, really show a different element to what it's like when Black people are still wrapped up in this whole idea of good hair, bad hair. This particular artist, her name is Nakia Brown. She did a whole collection of pieces where she did photographs of beautiful Black women, all with different types of hair textures, and they were all either ingesting synthetic hair or either vomiting synthetic hair in a means of saying, well, if this hair is good, quote unquote, good hair, then I should be able to take it in, right? This particular artist, Katura Ariel, she's an artist that's very well known in children's books, and she did this piece. It's called Internal Battle. And this particular piece is really interesting because it really, in a simplified form, really shows the internal decision-making that Black people have to go through, particularly Black women have to go through when they're deciding how to wear their hair. Will they wear their hair in its natural state, or will they follow societal's standards of beauty and wear their hair in straight hairstyles? This particular artist right here, her name is April Bay. This particular piece is actually one of my favorite pieces because of the depth of the meaning of this particular piece. She was inspired by a movie that came out in the 2009 by Chris Rock, the comedian. It was called Good Hair. And in that movie, Chris Rock talked about why Black women straighten their hair and why Black women wear weaves. However, Chris Rock did not really go into much detail about the rationale behind why women want to have their hair straight and why they want to add extensions to their hair. And so there were many people in the Black community that were a little bit disgusted with how the story of Black hair was told by Chris Rock. And April Bay was one of those people who was a little bit frustrated. And so she actually took the movie poster of Chris Rock and she painted Chris Rock as a clown. And she took it a step further. Not only did she paint him as a clown, but she also used the type of font. This particular type of font here with the word good is a font that you would find that resonates with the festival culture, that resonates with circus culture, and even with minstrel show culture. If you don't know minstrel shows, please go look it up. Minstrel shows are shows that white people would put on where they would dress up like Black people and basically treat Black culture as if it were comedian clown culture. And so April Bay, using that type of text, also sets the precedence for how foolish Chris Rock was in the portrayal of Black women's hair. Not only did she paint him as a clown, use the type of font that's synonymous with festivals and circuses, but then she took it a step further and actually shellacked the entire piece in hair relaxer. Hair relaxer that is oftentimes called in the Black culture creamy crack. And the reason why it's called creamy crack is because, again, Black women whose hair is typically very textured, very curly in its natural state, oftentimes will use this quote unquote creamy crack to get straightened hair. And she called the piece Creamy Chris because of this overlay of the creamy crack or hair relaxer on top of the piece. And what's really interesting about this piece is that April Bay wanted to really come across and really be explicit about the fact that Black hair concepts such as good hair need to be deconstructed, because over time, this piece is going to start breaking down. Since we got the piece, it's changed over time. The chemicals on top of the piece is what's going to create this breaking down or deconstructed aspects. Basically, synonymous with the idea that Black hair culture in regards to the words good and bad hair needs to be deconstructed.
When we think about politics, we should also think about how cultures collide with one another, how they influence each other, or how they push back. In this comparison, we have a bust from 19th century France. The artist is Jean-Baptiste Capot, and he was creating a large fountain, and he represented the 4 races of the world. So this is a study for the negress, or the Black woman figure. What is interesting is France had just banned slavery 20 years earlier, and Capot himself was an abolitionist against the institution of slavery. In this piece, he shows the woman who is breaking free of her bonds. You can see the rope tied around her chest and her arms. But the freest part of her is her hair. The way it moves in the air, the way it creates all these really dynamic textures as the light shines across the bronze surface. It was a contrast to the women of the other 3 races who all had hair that was tight and restrained and pulled back. So even though he is in favor of freeing Black people and against slavery, he still is perpetuating the idea of Africa as different and other, and the way that that is signaled is through the hair. So you have a white artist thinking about a Black body and Black hair, and then on this side of the case, you actually have Yoruba artists. The Yoruba people from Nigeria have this incredible tradition of beading, and so this beaded cap is inspired by the curly barrister wig of England. The UK had been the colonizer of a lot of Africa, including what is today Nigeria. And so here, they are borrowing this symbol of power and judicial authority from the UK, but translating it into a local tradition with the beaded work. So whether it's a white artist thinking about Black hair or Black artists taking inspiration from white hair, we have to consider the politics as cultures interact and collide. In the 3rd and final section of Textures, the History and Art of Black Hair, we introduce you to the concept of Black joy. Though the term Black joy has only been used in the last decade more popularly, especially on places like social media, the concept is an old one. Whether it's the Afro-Cobra artist group talking about shine or Black Pride movement, there are many instances across history where people are claiming self-love, claiming that Black is beautiful, my hair is great just with the texture that it is. And Black joy celebrates positive and aspirational images. Dr. Tameka phrased it best when she said, when the world says no time and time again, Black joy just says yes. So in this section, we have a lot of pieces from fashion, photography, but also thinking about youth, spirituality, and incredible reflections on self-acceptance. So this piece by Ngozi Shomers, who's a Nigerian artist who's relocated to Germany, really kind of pulls that theme all together. She makes images of herself. This is a self-portrait, And she's coming to terms with getting to know her own hair, accommodating the texture, how she can care for it for herself as an immigrant in a space that is not predominantly Black or adept at dealing with textured hair. And this even resonates with the pandemic, which is an overarching kind of lens for this whole exhibition, because we actually pushed it back a year due to the pandemic, where so many Black people were at home and all of a sudden having to figure out, what is my relationship with my hair if I can't get to the salon or the barber or the braider? So Ngozi is navigating that. All the other images have faded away. Her mirror, her comb, her bathroom, it's just her and her hair. And what's kind of really fun is when you zoom up close on this, you can see that the entire thing is made out of cut out pieces of paper, small circles and dots, because when she was in school, she actually developed an allergy to paint. So it just kind of shows the ingenuity in her art, matching the ingenuity and creativity that it takes for caring for your own hair. An important aspect of Black Joy is thinking about generational impact. The two artists exhibited here, Masa Zodros and Tawny Chapman, both use children in their imagery, but both are also digital artists. So in Masa Zodros' piece, Petite Lena, she edits out the girl's hair and substitutes in these incredible pink blossoms to show the fruition, the idea that change can come generationally, and that's where a source of joy can stem from. Tawny Chapman works with regal images of children. Sometimes she even photoshops out their eyes and superimposes the eyes of older Black people so that you have the wisdom that comes from age and yet that hope that comes from youth. Tawny Chapman's image is actually on the cover of the catalog of our exhibition publication, which includes 6 essays and photographs and descriptions of every piece in the exhibition. We're really proud to have partnered with Hermer Publishers and have worldwide distribution, and we're currently on our 3rd printing of it. So really exciting to see the reception to it. So if you are interested in more of what we're talking about in these themes and want to dig a little deeper, the catalog might be a good option for you.
So the Black Joy section of the exhibition is actually my favorite part. It's a way for Black people to really just be unapologetically themselves. These 2 pieces by Charlotte Mensah were really important for us to have in the show because Charlotte Mensah is actually a fashion photographer. And my background is actually in fashion. I spent several years working as a fashion designer in the industry. And so I wanted to make sure that I also was able to represent the actual fashion industry and how Black people have had such an amazing contribution to fashion. And so in these 2 pieces, Charlotte Mensah is inspired by the Afrofuturism culture. Afrofuturism started in the 1970s and was created because there were Black artists who were very adamant about getting Black people's faces in sci-fi films. So it started off as something that was part of the film industry, and then it trickled down into various elements of art, like I said, including fashion. This particular piece right here is from an artist by the name of Glenford Nunez. Glenford is an amazing photographer who did a whole series of pieces that were representative of Black women in different types of hair textures and in different types of stances. And one of the things that was really intriguing for us to have this piece in the show was because the very look on her face, and this young lady, the model is Zaruta, it actually just embodies what Black joy is, just unapologetically, just happy to be who they are, a level of self-awareness that is just undeniable. And you can definitely see that all over her face. Also in the Black Joy section of the exhibition, you'll see these 2 pieces that are very representative of spirituality. It's important that Black people see themselves not only as hair as a part of their physical body, but also hair as a part of their spirituality. Within our bodies, we have 7 chakras, And the most upmost chakra that's closest to our hair is called the crown chakra. And the crown chakra is the closest thing that we have to spirit. And so it's really interesting that these two artists are displaying this element of spirituality in hair. Masa Zontros's piece, the top piece here, it's called Femme Totem Blue. And when you think of the word totem, totem is very synonymous with spirituality in Native cultures. Also, this particular piece by Delita Martin is really beautiful. She does a lot of multimedia, mixed media types of techniques to represent this piece that she calls the light. It's even just the title of the piece is very representative of how important Black hair is to our physical as well as our spiritual being. Also, when you look at this particular piece by an artist, Leslie Sarr, she's also including spirituality in her work and looking at how oftentimes in traditional religious art, Black people were actually eliminated from traditional spiritual or religious art. This piece is very reminiscent of the Virgin Mary. And what I love about it is that Leslie Sarr gave this image a beautiful big white afro, and it may have actually been reminiscent of what Mary's hair actually really was like, you know, back in those days. And so just having this piece in the Black Joy part of the exhibition is a way to bring Black people back into histories that they were oftentimes eliminated from. Well, what can I say about this particular piece? Kehinde Wiley is a contemporary artist that is very well known. And so for Dr. Joseph and I to even be able to get access to this piece, to have it here in the show just helps to bring the show up and elevate it even more. And so this particular piece was dedicated to a model that he used. Her name was Tanisha Crenchlow. What I love about the piece is that he really gave us the essence of Tanisha. He left elements such as her tattoo. He left the makeup that she had on. He could have cleaned up that makeup, but he left it as street as Tanisha was in her natural element. And so I absolutely love this piece.
What's really great about Kehinde's work is that he's inspired by Renaissance and Baroque art from Western art history. And he's taking that portrait, that history painting, and saying if subjects like the Bible and mythology should be painted on that scale, so can a regular Black individual from my life. I think it's a really easy way to say that Black Lives Matter by ascribing that level of importance with what is traditionally done in painting. So Tanisha, like you said, she's keeping a lot of her personal elements, and yet she's got this incredible brocade gown, she's got pearls and emeralds, and then the hairstyle is really reminiscent of something like Marie Antoinette would wear. You know, women of that time would stack pillows, bird cages, fabric, other materials to create that bouffant size. And here, what's incredible is he's using every kind of color of twist and weave and lock, from black to brown to purple, you know, giving all those nuances and shades to build it up. It resonates really beautifully with this piece by Nafis White. Nafis White is a mixed race artist. She is inspired by her own kind of British heritage on one side and African American heritage on the other. And so in photography, they used to put a little lock of hair from a person who passed away and twist it and put it in the back of the frame. And so she's borrowing from that, but also creating these incredible twists that are done with braids and really emphasizing the sculptural qualities of textured hair. You can do things with it that you can't with really straight hair. And so it's almost like this hairstyle has come to life in the sculpture by Nafis.
Yeah. And another thing that I love about this piece is the fact that the artist used, again, this artificial or Kananka line hair, which is very reminiscent of urban street Black culture, just like where Tanisha came from.
She said she actually uses the synthetic hair because real hair has too many memories and things built in. And she's like, I'm already working with enough memories. So just even the choices an artist makes with their materials can be part of what tells the story.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Another aspect to Black Joy is defining how you want to look in the world. How are you going to move about it? What's really incredible is these are from artists on the African continent, some traditional, some contemporary. So these pieces from the Mende Society in Sierra Leone, they're incredible because the masquerade tradition, where you put on a mask and a costume, across the African continent is typically danced by men. This is one of the only ones that's danced by female dancers. So this initiation ceremony is for women who are coming of age, and every single Sowe helmet mask shows the ideals that a woman is supposed to embody. So a small mouth so that she doesn't gossip, small ears so she doesn't hear it. But what's incredible is the top third or half of every Sowe mask is the hairstyle. Incredible blends of crests and braids and twists that show how important that is to marking both beauty and individuality. Leboang Motoung is an artist from South Africa who is thinking through some of those same issues today. She actually started as a hairstylist and braider and thought, I can transfer this into a more permanent format. I can make my art that I put on people's head, which is temporary, something that lasts forever. So she actually pulls synthetic hair through holes in the canvas and creates these incredible braids and twists. This figure, actually, the hair extends all the way to a woven hair helmet, which a visitor is supposed to wear. So you would come up to it, you would put the helmet on yourself, and then you now are connected through your hair to the figure on the wall, creating those kinds of dialogues.
This artist by the name of Margaret Boland is also a part of our Black Joy section of the exhibition. Dr. Joseph and I, when we were in the process of curating the show and deciding what was going to go into the gallery, he and I were very adamant about making sure that the artists that were represented in the show were Black artists. However, this particular piece is represented by a white artist, Margaret Boland. And the reason why we felt it important that we put her piece in the main gallery is because Margaret Boland has a very empathetic, understanding idea of what it means to be a Black woman and what it means to be a Black woman who is having to be someone following societal standards of beauty. And so whenever she creates her paintings, she uses these beautiful Black girls as her models. And she oftentimes will put them in these lovely garments. This little girl right here has on a beautiful greenish dress with a lot of embroidery and other small, tiny, delicate elements of it. And what I love about it is the fact that Margaret Boland really had a great understanding of the Black hair texture. The way that she handled the hair with the paint is just unbelievable. All of the beautiful little baby hair fuzz and other textures that she picked up in her artwork, I absolutely love. But something that was really critical for me to have a better understanding of the empathy that she has for Black beauty is that every piece that she does, she will oftentimes finish the piece by painting the face of her model white. And the reason why she does that is because she really has a great understanding that in order for Black people to be considered beautiful, we still have to wear a mask. We still have to follow the societal standard of beauty, that white, westernized standard of beauty. In order for us to be considered a human being, in order for us to be considered someone of great value, we have to wear a mask. This part of the exhibition pays homage to Dr. Willie Morrow, who is one of our lenders who lent us over 100 pieces for the show. Dr. Morrow is a legend in the hair industry because he started off his career as a barber in the 1950s, and he was very active in the civil rights movement, and he would cut the hair of people such as Martin Luther King and other prominent civil rights leaders. He even created wooden picks that he hand carved himself in his studio. He would take these picks and he would sell these picks and use the profits to also help fund certain elements of the civil rights movement. Dr. Morrow not only was a barber, but he was also an author. I found out about him through his work called 400 Years Without a Comb. So this particular book is one of the most comprehensive pieces of literature all about the history of Black hair from before slavery times up to contemporary times. And Dr. Morrow, not only was he a barber and an author, but he was also an inventor. Several of the products in this particular case right here were pieces that were invented by Dr. Morrow. He invented hair care products, he invented hair tools, as well as he wrote the very first Black barbering book on how to cut Black hair. So Dr. Morrow is a tremendous asset to the Black hair care industry, and we were just blessed to be able to get to meet him and to be able to go through his collection. He also has the largest collection of Black hair artifacts in the nation, and so the opportunity to meet him and to go through his collection and to have him partner with us on the show was a true honor.
This is a site-specific installation by Zimbabwean-born artist Nonsi Kalelo Mutiti. We loved having Nonsi as one of our virtual lectures for textures, so you can feel free to find that online. What Nonsi does as a designer is she takes things that are repeatable patterns, modular things, and in this instance, Black hair braids. She designs installations for murals, walls, interesting architectural spaces, and then the braids tend to be reflective of some kind of text. So it's hard to see here, but it actually spells out the word Casamance through these incredible kind of braided letters. Casamance is actually a region in southern Senegal. So there's all kinds of cross-cultural connections there. The installation is a perfect example of the kinds of collaboration it takes to design and style Black hair, because we had to work with her across WhatsApp and Zoom during the pandemic, and a whole team of people here at the museum to make the installation happen since the artist couldn't come in person. So it's an interesting kind of reflection of the teamwork it takes to make Black hairstyles out in the real world versus what it takes to put together an exhibition and complex installations.
Thank you for joining us for the virtual tour of Textures, the History and Art of Black Hair. This has been a project that Dr. Joseph and I have been working on for the past 4 years, and we're honored to bring it to you. We're really hoping that the show will bring about a better understanding of Black culture, a better understanding of the humanization of Black beauty and Black people. And
it's everyone's story.
Yes.
Everyone has a part in it. Even if you think you're not personally implicated, there's legislation going around today talking about protecting Black hair and hairstyles. So to be an engaged global citizen, it's something we should all know about.
Absolutely.
So we've built several resources that we hope you'll take advantage of, from the exhibition catalog that's been published, to our website, to the Digital Green Book Project, which is a poetry response app that also includes 10 interviews with area barbers and salon artists, just getting their perspective on everything. And please join us in person if you can. The exhibition runs through August 2022, and we have a whole spate of online virtual programming to go with it as well. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, it was our honor to be able to tour this exhibition for you.